500 days of war are behind us. Russia has already lost, but the Ukrainians have not yet won. We have to keep this in mind every day. There is still a lot of work ahead. Russian occupation forces not only lost the ability to conduct large-scale offensive operations, but also to hold captured territories on the defensive. For the Russian army, the war has shifted from a victorious offensive to a defensive retreat. The Russian Volunteer Corps, the Legion of Free Russia, and later Prigozhin and his Wagner group did their job. After their unhindered invasion of Russia, enemy forces now have to be diverted to guarding their borders. So today will be an overview of the potential of the Russian grouping along the Ukrainian border in the north of the country. There is no fighting here now, but there was a full-scale invasion across the borders of these regions in February 2022. In brief, the Russian grouping along this part of the border has the following appearance, which I have presented in the form of a table. Pause the video to compare the numbers before and after. In this case, a remarkable trend should be noted. Literally in February this year this grouping was numerically equal to 17,000 people. That is, we see an obvious increase, but there is a nuance. If we look at these figures superficially, we can talk about growth, but if we go deeper into the matter, we can draw some conclusions, though obvious for a long time, but nevertheless invariably useful. But in order to draw these conclusions, we should turn to the well-known Battalion Tactical Group Index. According to the BTG Index, the Russian grouping, numerically corresponding to 22 BTGs, has grown to 33 BTGs. That is, an increase of 11 BTGs. Now we follow the increase in equipment, according to the proportions that should correspond to this increase in personnel. Tanks plus 34 instead of 121. Armored vehicles plus 32 instead of 363. Barrel artillery plus 288 instead of 132. Multiple rocket launchers plus 16 instead of 132. That is, we see only a hypertrophied increase in barrel artillery, which is also not surprising. The Russian side is massively and as quickly as possible removing from storage all of its existing types of towed artillery, trying to saturate its units with it, even more than they need in terms of functionality. We can see this constantly on the Ukrainian General Staff's reports, as well as on videos of the recent total genocide of Russian World War II artillery. At the same time, the disastrous level of standard equipment in tanks, armored combat vehicles, and MLRS continues to persist. This is because their reactivation and restoration to combat-ready condition is a longer and more energy-consuming process that does not allow for timely compensation for losses. Thus, we can state that Russia continues to experience serious problems with the staffing of its units, and the critical lack of appropriate technical resources does not allow it to fully improve the situation. Once again, they are relying on waves of cannon fodder and ancient artillery. Meanwhile, the United States will be supplying Ukraine with cluster munitions. I can already smell fried. It was the 501st day of the civilized world's struggle against Russism.